And we are live. Ooh. Welcome back to another episode and year of The Daily Show. That's right. We've now been rocking for over a year, a bunch of great guests. And I just want to thank everyone who's been part of the show so far, everyone who behind the scenes is making it happen week on, week out. I just get to sit down and talk shite with great people, and that's a wonderful, wonderful experience. So it's been a great year. Now, to kick off 2021 in a big bad way, we have returning the first return guest, and the first guest of 2021, Mr. Andy Barden. How are you, sir?
I'm good, mate. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm exhausted. That was the first intro I've done in a long time. That's all I got.
Yeah, you may go have a kip now, mate.
That's exactly it. So if you could talk for a half hour, that'd be lovely. And I'll pass out.
I usually can.
Well, which is why you're the first episode back. So how are things for you? Did you have much of a break?
I did. Yeah, we managed to get 10 days. I had a little spell in the middle there where we kind of just checked in. The team just checked in on a few bits and pieces, make sure the world hadn't fallen over. But other than that, we managed to kind of switch off for 10 days, which was lovely. And I think everyone needed it. Everyone definitely needed it. We probably needed longer, to be fair, but the world's got to keep going. So we had to come back. But yeah, it was lovely. It was nice.
I did exactly the same thing. Every year we close, or whatever the last kind of working day is before, the end of the week before the whenever Christmas is. So we close the company from then until whenever the first working day is, and just give everybody off the time on the company. Essentially, it means that December is a real push. So everyone kills themselves for 2 weeks. But this year I was literally, in Christmas of 2020, I was able to take off from December 18th until the 4th, and I literally just took a complete blackout on social, not on email necessarily, but on social, kind of across the board. So even to the point when I was looking back and I was like, cool, look at the Christmas photos. I didn't take any photos because I wasn't in that mindset, and I didn't just have I wasn't here. I actually spent 2 weeks being present and engaged, and it's only me and my wife here. I say only my wife, but it's only the two of us here. At least it was just great to have 2 weeks of genuine conversation and being engaged. And sure, we're sitting watching Home Alone and Die Hard like everybody else at Christmas, but I'm not just kind of half watching, half working for 2 weeks. It's great. It did mean that when I walked back in January, I didn't know what I did for a living anymore, and I had to remember that hard.
I'm still done.
So how's it been back? Look, last year it doesn't look like this is going to let up on us too quickly. But last year was an unprecedented dumpster fire, as they say in the States. How was it for you? I know it's an ugly question, but how were things?
It was a tale of two halves, really. I think from a business perspective, the company that I work for, we had a fantastic first half. And like a lot of businesses, we work with brands. Those brands then had their own challenges. So as with a lot of businesses, we've had to adapt. We've had to change what we do. We've had to look deep inside within the team and look at different skill sets and look at the services we could potentially offer that we weren't offering to try and drive extra revenues and support clients in different ways, which we've done and we continue to do. From my perspective with the Unconventional Boss, that I probably started that at the worst possible time known to man.
I mean,
but it wasn't necessarily about starting it and then immediately having a list of people that wanted to work with me.
No, and that's the thing.
The brand.
And that's the Unconventional Boss is essentially not your side hustle, but it's your brand, right?
It's me.
You, where and you have a job as well. So it's not
where I do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's amazing, and that ties in. But it wasn't like you were stopping your job and starting a new thing, and you'd started it, in March of last year, as the flames started to catch suddenly around you. It was an additional thing, and I think all of us who have been lucky enough to continue to be employed and not furloughed or redundant have been super maxed. Having an extra something to build in last year wasn't necessarily the right time.
It wasn't, but I think because it is just an extension of what I do day to day, it was more about, okay, well, people know me as that anyway. Let's put this out there tentatively as a service that could be taken up by other companies in a space where they need that added support for their management teams. It's what I do day to day. Can I include into my day? Yes, it's going to have to be revolved around my job, which is obviously super important. But can I include that into what I do and almost have other people as an extension of that team to support beyond what I support day to day? Yes, I probably can. And I've had some great conversations, with potential clients that hopefully will continue into this year. So for me, it was such a tie-in to what I do day to
Yeah,
day. It didn't feel like I stopped one thing and then had to instantly switch my mind to something else.
sure.
So yeah, it was great. It's been a relatively slow start, but I've been quite distant from social media for the last month or so in the sense that I've not been as active as I would like to be. But
Mhm.
hey, life's busy, and you have to take the chances when they come along. So I'll get back to it, but you have to go with what's present at the time.
And I think that's actually one of the real nice things that 2020 taught, or lockdown and the sudden change taught people, or like just made people learn essentially, was that it is very helpful to be consistent on social. Absolutely, 100%. To be posting daily, to be posting on a regular basis, so people know they got this, to mix up your content, all that stuff. Good, right? You get 2 thumbs up from me.
Yeah.
However, it's absolutely okay if that doesn't happen. It's
Mm.
okay if you stop. It's okay if you take a break for Christmas. It's okay to take a moment. And I've spoken to a few people and they're like, "Oh, that must have been bliss, just 2 weeks off." And do it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you've built enough momentum, and unless you're trying to promote something in the next 2 weeks, okay, don't take the time off. But you can absolutely plan to be like, I'm not gonna, at weekends, for instance, I tend to shut off from LinkedIn from whenever I finish work on Friday until Monday, just to give myself a little chance, to look at the other platforms because I'm so just nose deep in LinkedIn
Yeah.
constantly,
Yeah.
and also just as some time off, just stressing about work.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I found working from home isn't like, it's not necessarily what I'm built for. I like to work in
No.
a team of people. I like to go
Yeah.
somewhere to work. Um,
Same.
even when we started the company and we were working out of a big old summer house, big old shed, 5 years ago. That's like 2 doors down from my business partner's house. We could have worked in his house, but I was like,
Yeah.
I want to go to
Yeah.
somewhere.
Let's separate it. Let's
Yes.
keep it separate.
Yeah.
I think that's even more important now. Not that we're going to get it back for a while,
Mhm.
but what people are probably struggling with at the moment is not only is there not that separation from your own home and your own work, but there isn't even that separation now from the kids and school and home and everything in your life is now under one roof,
Yeah.
and that's difficult for the parents that are out there listening. They'll know where I'm coming from. That is super difficult.
Of course it is, because you spend your life trying to separate like the work thing from the family thing.
Mm.
Why would you bring the work guy to play with your kids? Like, those are different people.
Yeah,
And now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, listen, you got, like, leave me alone because I'm doing this other thing. And I know that's
yeah.
not, that's not really cool. I can't really say that, can I? You can't
No.
just leave me alone. I'm your dad. Oh no.
Yeah, I'm just going to kick off and kick the door down if you do that. So then you're not going to get any work done. Um,
Exactly. Let's
so
see who's good at this game, pal.
yeah, and I feel like this time round it's so much different to the first time because
Ah,
we're
big
in
time.
winter. I can't just throw them out in the garden. The work is so intense now for the kids. They're like
Mm.
on Zoom calls all day. You
Right.
know, back in March, April, May of last year, my 8-year-old barely did any work. It barely
Sure.
did anything because they weren't on it. Whereas
They
now
hadn't
they're
set up any of the
super on
systems
it.
or the process. Okay,
No,
cool.
so
Well,
it's a lot more intense now.
mm. Well, and which is great. But then I was watching something on the news or something a couple of days ago, and something I hadn't thought about because I'm not a parent. But a kid isn't just going to sit in front of Zoom and behave, and sweet. See you in 8 hours like usual. I'll just be
I
on the Zoom call.
I watch. I've done a couple where my son, my 8-year-old, he's great, but because of his autism, you can't just leave him in front of the screen
No.
and expect him to take it in. So he has 3 Zoom calls a day, every day. And then I've got my 5-year-old who is just terrorizing the rest of the house. So one of us has to do one or the other. And I was watching my 8-year-old on the Zoom, and he's just twirling around on his chair, looking at the ceiling. And I'm thinking, this is a complete waste of time. I'm constantly having to reset him so that
Sure.
he's actually watching and listening to what's being said. But it's not the teacher's fault, but
Of course not.
some of the stuff that's coming out, I'm just listening thinking, the kids just aren't getting anything from this.
Mm.
They're just not. Like, there's a little chat box at the side of the thing on the Zoom, and they're
Hey,
all just writing rubbish in there and
they're
doing
8.
emojis, and the teacher's having to tell them off.
Yeah, they're 8 years old. Like,
Yeah,
if you look at the chat group between me and my friends, it's probably the same the same messages
mate.
going back and forth, right?
Maybe not quite the same.
Yeah, maybe we no longer work. Apart from that, the comedy's got no better. Um,
Yeah,
but what I mean. And I at least I'm a disciplined adult who doesn't like jump on that all day.
yeah,
I
of
mean,
course.
well, not every day. Sorry,
Sunday's off.
that's right. Sundays off.
Yeah,
It's nightmare. So how are you and your wife dealing with it? What you put in place to kind of, because I've found the same thing, the lack of separation between church and state.
yeah,
Ain't easy to work with, because it's like, how do I switch off if I live there and I work here? Like, I can
yeah,
spit and hit where I chill.
yeah,
And my computer, I got lights and big screens and stuff, and this bad boy just looms over at me, staring at
yeah.
me over there.
We're in the fortunate position in some respects that Lindsay, my wife, she doesn't work currently. We've been
Great.
very fortunate that over the last few years, I haven't needed her to just go and find a job that she doesn't really enjoy just for the sake of bringing in a few quid. So she's been able to dedicate that time to my eldest son, who requires a lot of input that I
Sure.
think if she was working, that would be difficult. Although I appreciate there's a hell of a lot of fabulous working mums that are also dealing with that and having to run their own businesses as well.
Killing it
Um,
somehow. Somehow is
Somehow,
and somehow is the only equation I can
yeah,
understand.
literally, I honestly don't know how, but we're fortunate in that respect. Even with that,
Mm.
my wife can dedicate all the time she wants to my eldest son. But if you've then got my youngest son
She's
not
still
allowing
outnumbered.
that to happen,
Yeah.
that I still have to jump in and support, and every other person in my position that has to do the same. As a dad, you can't hear World War III kicking off, and you're just in the middle of typing something out on email or whatever, and think, do you know what? I'm just going to leave you to that, and
That sounds all right.
that sounds fair. I kind of want to stay married for a while. Um, So you have to just jump in, and companies and businesses, they just have to accept it at the moment that
That's
we're in
right.
times that we've never been in.
Yeah.
This isn't something that businesses are used to dealing with.
Mm.
So, but the good businesses, and certainly my business is one of them. They accept that, and there's a trust level there that if I have to take time out during the day, I mean, the amount of times I log on of an evening when the wife and I are sitting there watching The Crown, and it's good. The Crown, you should watch that.
I
Um,
watched the trailer the other day. I barely watch any British stuff because
it's
it gets
good,
up my
mate.
nose.
It's good.
But I watched the trailer the other day. I was like, "Oh, what's this?
Yeah.
Diana? Oh, hello."
No, it's good. And but I'll have the laptop open, and I'll be catching up on anything I've missed and stuff. And there has to be that trust there that if you're taking that time out during the day, that you'll then do that, and stuff will get done.
100%. But what I do like that has changed, we were saying before the call, is the fact that any embarrassment of your kids running around in the background while on a work call,
Yeah.
or noise. Oh, sorry, my kids are playing the back. That used to be like a genuine thing. You'd see people dying over on a Zoom call, like, "Oh, I've had to work from home, and because my wife's ill and my kids are going crazy, and I'm so sorry. Can we just get Now it's like, cool, don't worry, just hit mute until you want to talk, and
Yeah.
you let,
Yeah.
let World War III happen behind you while we get this call done. I don't care. If you go and sort them out if you need to, I don't mind. Like, you know what I mean? And I really like that, and I think there's quite a few little instances of that where this working from home thing hopefully will bleed into like normal life and normal work. Like, do we need to wear suits if we've just seen each other all wearing t-shirts for a year? Don't know. Maybe not. We still need to get haircuts because we all saw each other get pretty out of the game for a little while.
My wife still does mine.
I've started shaving it. I just started blitzing it off.
Yeah, I'm 4 weeks. I'm normally a 3-week man, but we've gone 4 weeks, and now I done a wrong one because I've let it go for another week, and she's now done a week of homeschooling, and I'm asking her to cut my hair, and I feel like she wants to stab me in the face. So I could end up with a serious barnet going on where it just doesn't get cut unless I cut it myself. So yeah, I might be wearing hats on the next video.
Is it beanies? It would go full Gary V, sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be, mate.
It's a hard look though.
Yeah, I wouldn't pull it off either because my hair just grows up.
So every time you take it off, you've got a 90s straight up haircut.
Yeah, it's not a good look. Although at least I've still got my hair. A lot of people my age have started really losing it. So I'd rather be grey with hair than bald.
I've always thought that, but I read that it comes from your mum's dad, apparently, your hairline, or some old folklore I've heard. And they're all completely bald. They like keep this wee bit and then a little bit, a bit of a Captain Picard around the edge. I'm like, oh man, but dog, I got the nice thick hair. Come on.
Yeah. It could just happen overnight.
Well, that's it. But I did spend years with hair like that I was sitting on when I was sat down. I had really long hair for an awful long time. Yeah, I was all rock and roll for a long time. Awful long time. I had to start a company to legitimize myself. So how are you seeing that businesses are reacting? Right, there's a lot of people. We're all in the same boat. I think if anything that we're saying here is that me too. I don't have kids, but me too. Right, we're all going through the same stuff. How are you seeing businesses kind of react to that?
In general, I think people are being pretty good around it. From my experience, I think what businesses need to do, and we've worked with a lot of companies over the last 9 months that, for instance, had call center based. We do a lot of lead generation, so we work with a lot of call centers. Obviously, come March, all the call centers shut, so a lot of those campaigns were paused.
Right.
And over the following 3 to 4 months, those call centers adjusted their business model to allow those people to call handle from home. As we know, a lot of the big insurance companies and stuff like that.
Thanks.
So they're all set up, great. But there's a lot that didn't. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, you've had 9 months. This isn't going away. How have you not adapted to that? And I think the other key thing to remember is that what the good businesses are doing is they are looking at their people, they're looking at their personnel and saying, okay, there's an area of our business that probably isn't seeing growth and maybe is in decline. However, we have really good people in that part of the business that could potentially be reskilled because there's an opportunity here for us to use expertise and go into another part of our business that we could sell into our existing client base. Yeah. So I think it's being very clever with your staff and your personnel, understanding what they're good at and their skill set. And that sounds stupid and simple.
It does, but I'm laughing because I know how many places don't necessarily know that because they work on getting the work done by people who can do the jobs, not necessarily work on what people are great at and putting them in those roles.
Yes, that's exactly right. And probably that many companies do that, and that many companies just work, as you said, they have a key series of tasks that need to be achieved. People fulfill those tasks, but the reality is people don't necessarily enjoy doing those tasks, which means they're not giving 100%, which means you're just really coasting along existing.
Yeah.
If you actually look at the people in your business and what they love and what they are great at, you're not going to get it right every time, but especially now, can your business adjust to utilize more of the skill set of the 10, 20, 30, 100 people in your business?
Yeah.
And probably not enough people are looking at it like that.
No, especially considering it's been survival mode, right? And everyone's, as you were saying earlier, companies have had to be like, cool, main revenue stream, not really a thing anymore. But then those little periphery things were kind of
Yeah,
doing okay, and I can still do that, in this environment. Great, lean into that. That does well, which obviously wasn't needed. However, this isn't something where you're doing a 6-month stopgap. And to be honest, it's the one shining light that I'm seeing from speaking to people over the last few days since the second big lockdown, is that the processes and things that people put in place as stopgaps are now becoming kind of like permanent fixtures within
mm,
companies, because they saw over 6 months that this worked and understand that that will work for the future. Great, you've got a new revenue stream, you got a new idea, you got a new thing that you can do. Well, great, as you're saying, the next thing to do then is look internally, find out who could be great
yeah,
at delivering that and helping that make happen,
yeah,
or
yeah,
get across the line.
yeah, yeah. And I think I've always made a habit of looking at the people within the business, specifically within my teams, and said, okay, acknowledge the fact that someone's good at something,
Hmm.
but also acknowledge the fact that one day roles eventually get boring.
Okay.
Every role gets boring.
Sure.
And if you don't evolve that role, that's one of the key 5 reasons. And I'm probably about to launch a YouTube video on this. That's one of the 5 reasons people either leave
Mm.
or go sick because they're bored. And it sounds crazy. You think we're bored, but people get paid to do a job. But the reality is, if you paid me £1 million to watch the grass grow,
Mm.
I'd take your £1 million.
All day long, and the first 3-4
I'd be
months of
bored
that would be
shitless.
good. First three
Yeah,
months would be all right, like,
yeah.
and then and
But,
then it'd be
but
really
I'd
bad.
lose the will. I'd lose the will to live, and I'll probably give you £1 million back just to get some stimulation going in my life.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
people are no different in roles. Roles can only entertain and engage people for so long before they have to evolve.
Mm.
And sometimes a role can only go so far. But if you understand that person's skill set and the needs of the business or where the business could go,
Mm.
you can pivot. And I don't hate that word. I'll take that word back.
Sure.
But you can adjust those people and reskill and maybe take your business in a new direction that keeps them engaged and stops you losing them.
Which is the biggest problem. It's such a pain losing people, and I say that as a pain
Mm,
because I don't want to cry about it. Like, it's you invest, as a business owner, I know it's horrible being in a job you don't want to be in, and I was like rife for leaving jobs, so I totally get both sides, right? But
mm,
it's so difficult as a business owner because you invest, like, yeah, sure, money and time into people, but also like part of my soul. Like, I love those people, I want those people to do really well, I want them to do well outside of life and in the office and whatever, right? Like, it's very hard to get invested, and then they leave. And like you're saying, that can easily be from not necessarily anything that's like your fault. You're not making it a bad working environment. You're not being horrible. It's not a bad job. It's not underpaid, but it is the same thing that I
mm.
did last year and the
Yeah.
year before. And guess what? I just don't want to do it no more. I don't want to watch grass grow anymore. Like, I can't
Mm.
do it, no matter how
And it's
fun it is
the
as well.
it's the acknowledgement as well. It's sometimes you can't evolve or change someone's position that minute.
Mm.
But if you acknowledge that I accept things aren't great, I accept things are probably a little bit boring. However, let's work on something together that perhaps within a 6-9 month time frame adjusts the way you do things, or possibly even puts you in a different part of the business because
Nice.
that's
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
skill set. People have got something to work towards. So it's not about necessarily changing it that minute, but it's acknowledging it. I've got no problem. I've been to my boss in the last 9 years. I've been to him on more than one occasion and said to him, I'm bored. And that's my company owner.
Yeah.
Not, and a lot of people would worry that you go to your company owner and tell them you're bored, you're the first one on the chopping block.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Okay.
But it's a testament to him as an individual
Mm.
that I can go to him and say that, and he can then talk to me about options,
Sure. What do you
about
mean bored?
potentially things I'm missing.
Yeah. Bored with.
Um,
Bored with what?
exactly,
Why?
options.
Yeah.
And I know that I can talk to my staff, and they can come to me and say things are a bit samey.
Mm.
It's getting boring. I'm not going to think, oh, you're having a laugh, and you're the first one out the door.
Do you
I
know what we're
take
going
that as
through?
yeah, I take that as shit. I've failed here. If they
Mhm.
have to come to me and tell me they're bored, and I haven't seen it first,
Mm.
then I've failed.
Absolutely,
That's how I
100%.
see it.
You need to start reviewing how you're looking at people, because and literally I have been through that during last year. Like, been through that during last year, lost a head of digital marketing for the same reason, was kind of doing something that, as you're saying it, I'm hearing it tick off the boxes that that the position that he was in is not something that necessarily wanted to do, not necessarily what we employed him for either, but just found something he was good at and was doing well at it. And we were always saying like, oh, at some point we'll get back to that other thing. We'll get back to that other thing. We'll do some more
Yeah,
podcasts, do some more some of that.
yeah,
But he was great at delivering what needed to be done. He was killing it, killing it, and killing it, and killing it. And when everything's kind of kicked off, and he's turned around and been like, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to put the pedal to the metal. And I totally, like, not in a bad way, not like he's a lazy guy, but we're
mm,
all about to have to step up and work our socks off clearly during during lockdown. I don't think I'm that guy. Like, I've done what I want to do here.
mm,
And looking back on it, it's like, yeah, because that wasn't what you wanted to do. It
yeah,
wasn't necessarily there. And we made a mistake. We've sat down and gone through so many reviews of like, where did we, as in myself and the other business owner, Tony, where did we go through? How did we miss that? Sure,
yeah.
we said, are you okay a lot, but is that enough? No, it's
No,
not.
it's
Because,
tick box.
well, that's it. And it's a tick box and you make yourself feel good about it, but you're not actually getting anything done. And as a, it's all really busy. Why I'm asking people, okay, because they're working really hard. Well, they clearly seeing the same thing as us. We're
Mm,
online before they are, and we're still working long afterwards. They don't want to come and be like, yeah, I know it's hectic right now, but you're
mm,
cool, but I don't want to do this. Like, that's not cool. So you end up getting in this perpetual situation where everyone's afraid to talk to each other.
yeah, yeah.
It's a horrible place to be.
It is a horrible place to be, and you have to create an environment where people are happy to be open, be honest. You have to have an environment of trust, and I think when you have that, you can literally talk to people about anything without that fear of, oh, if I say that, then I'm going to be banging trouble, or I'm going to be first on the list, or
Yeah, or he's going to
and
get well pissed off. Yeah, sure.
but there are a lot of companies where that would be the case.
Yeah.
I know that there are a lot of companies where if you went to your boss and said, I'm bored, you would be met with uh, just the worst possible response ever. And you would be the first name on the list if there was ever any an opportunities for people to go. So,
Yeah, I mean, I worked in sales sort of my whole career, and it was weird because it seems like there's one department where you're not allowed to even potentially bring up any stuff like that. Like, as soon as you're saying it, I'm like, yeah, I get it. If one of the tech guys wasn't working on what he's doing, but the
yeah.
salesperson, I could never say that. Why? Because your job is just to get it done, get it done.
Mm,
However, in my last role, before the last sort of role you could have employed me for before starting GL Pro, was an environment I worked in for 5 years, and they weren't like that. It was an open policy. I could be like, I'm not having a good time. I'm
mm,
bored of this. I'm kind of like, I'm doing it and I'm hitting numbers, and it's okay. You're not coming at me saying like, you're not hitting your number, Jay. Da 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 da. I'm
mm.
coming to you and being like, I'm hitting a number, but I don't care anymore. Like, I don't care
Yeah,
about like I should. I'm
yeah,
not waking up and being like, nah, 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 and killing it. And today's a day, man. Instead, I'm kind of like dragging myself in and getting it done for the sake of it.
yeah.
And having that open door policy. But all right, so you've had the experience, and as an employee, how does someone build a culture where they have that open door policy?
It has to come from the top.
Right.
It has to start from day one. If you're a company now that doesn't have that,
Mm,
it takes time. You have to decide from the very top level. That's the policy I'm going to adopt. That's how I want to build a culture within my business. And you, as an individual, have to then go and liaise with every single one of those people
right.
and start to have those open conversations. And one of the biggest things any leader has to do, and this goes missing a lot,
Okay.
is you have to be willing to open up about you. It's one thing saying to people, oh, talk to me about your problems, when in the back of your mind you're thinking, I don't really care, but this is something that I've been told I have to do. As a leader, I have to be able to listen.
Right.
But there's a difference between listening and hearing. And if
100%.
you're not, it can't be one way. You can't expect people to open up to you if they can't relate to you.
Sure.
And the only way they relate to you is if they know something about you. And many business owners are very much, my life is my life. You're not getting in there.
Mm,
But you can't expect people to have that two-way honest relationship with you where they can come and tell you anything if
sure.
they don't know anything about you.
And
Um,
I understand why bosses and business owners end up building that wall around them as well, because you also need to, what's the terminology? Be the sad clown, like, or the happy clown, or whatever the terminology is. But when things are bad or things are hectic and such, you can't be going around and being like, "We might go bankrupt" to
yeah,
every instance that you might want to say that internally to your business partner or your management team or whatever. Whatever the example is, or God, I hate Brenda. But now, uh, but at the same point, so you want to be able to like I understand what I'm saying is I understand why people lock themselves off from having kind of like any of themselves out there, because it's too easy then to lead into the thing you do all the time, which is
yeah,
work.
it is. I think there's a way of being open. For instance, I've had lots of tough conversations with teams over the years
Mm,
that were tough. They were tough for me, and they were tough for the individual. But at the same time, my team will know what I'm doing in life. They'll know the name of some of my children. They'll know the name of my wife. They'll know that I've had an extension built on my home. They'll know what car I drive. They know what my hobbies are.
sure.
So when we have a two-way conversation about bollocks, which happens regularly, it is two-way, and
Sure.
they instantly relate to me as a human being. I think
Mm,
the problem is there's too many people in management positions that treat it almost just too robotic.
mm.
And it's a case of, I can't let people in there because it shows a weakness. And that's just rubbish.
Yeah, because
That's
actually
absolute rubbish.
that's a pretty weak like outlook,
It's
really, isn't it?
poor.
And it's the
It-
same thing as well. It's how do we all communicate everywhere? Like I recently went through during Christmas, kind of falling out with someone who had been on the show, so that they sell something that we're currently looking for. But I have suppliers. I have people who need it. What I don't need is people to. I don't want to constantly be chased. I don't want to. If I'm building a relationship with someone, you and I, for instance, I've never been like, "Hey, we need a podcast." Right?
yeah,
We talk. I take the mick out of you every now and again, vice versa. Right? We say hello. If I think anyone's having a bad time, we'll say hello. You know what I mean? And I was literally in a position where I was like, look at all of my responses to this. Every time you're coming at me with, cool. Oh, by the way, like I'm always like, nah, I'm cool. Or I don't answer the by the way. I'm just talking to you like a person who
yeah,
I'm talking to and building a relationship. Now, the funny thing is, I don't think that person really realized was those are the people I work with. That's
mm,
how I am at work. Like I'll say, nah, I don't like it. Like I don't really put up much of a facade. And this live show has been great for that because probably once upon a time I had a work facade and that was different from my rock and roll facade and my home, and my home Jay or whoever I was there. But being able to do stuff like this, there isn't really that. So when I say, nah, I'm not interested, people know. If they know me, they know I'm fully not interested. And hopefully that relates to the team as well.
yeah,
And they know in the same instance, not just keep coming back. And if I'm like, nah, not really, mate, not really, they know
yeah,
if I'm constantly saying that, I'm a genuine no, like
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's important that people know where they stand.
Mm,
But I think it is a skill. I've always said that being able to coach and develop people and being able to influence people in the right way, it's not something that anyone can do, or they certainly can't do it without support and experience. And if you don't have the luxury of spending the next 10 years fucking it up and getting the experience,
and having
then
the stories.
yeah, you kind of need someone that's been there and done it to
Yeah.
at least give you the pointers in the right direction and try and influence you in the right way.
Mm,
But you can't do that if they don't relate to you or know you. You just can't. And that's me. And there'll be people that disagree with that. But as far as I'm concerned, you cannot do that if people don't know you and can't relate to you and can't have a laugh with you,
yeah.
and can't call you a name without the fear of getting sacked. I mean, blimey, the names I get called in a day. the conversations. But I know, despite all that,
Mm,
if I ask someone to jump off a cliff with me,
yeah.
they'll jump off a cliff with me because we've got that mutual understanding.
And that is like the goal really, isn't it? That is the goal, having people who can um tell you to get lost in one hand and then, like come with you as well.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely, and it's that honesty and banter. We talk about banter all the time, and it is necessary. And that's one thing that not being in the office all the time we miss.
Yeah.
It's not the same over the phone.
No, it's not, and
Um,
I find myself like what I have made a conscious effort of doing though, of trying to make sure I'm putting on like my weekly list is like, have I spoken to Thingy in a
mm,
while? Because usually I'd be having a cigarette outside with them, or I'd be
yeah,
stood in the kitchen, and we'd end up talking for 25 minutes about whatever, right?
yeah,
So, but what it does mean is I end up, you can't have a 7-minute Zoom call. That's weird. Like,
yeah,
I've sent
yeah,
a link for this. Like, why are we just going to be
yeah,
like, all right, cool. Well, I'm going to go and do work, peace. So we end up having an hour and a half chat, big
yeah,
old catch up, which is also awesome, fantastic. And if we've got time to do it, obviously, if someone's busy, we're going to be like, dude, I gotta go,
yeah,
and hang up
yeah,
on each
yeah,
other. But I'm having a focus on doing that because I miss that so much. I miss just
yeah,
the like bit of chat and and then hearing something. That's the thing I've found as well. Like, conversation can be happening between Tony and Andy over there, where they're just yakety yak about the crown and how
yeah,
Tony loves it more than Andy. No, he doesn't. Yes, he does. That breeds into something else, which also kind of leans towards work. And I hear it and go like, oh, hang on,
yeah,
spin that back, spin
yeah.
that bad boy back. What do you mean? Couldn't we? Blah blah blah.
Yeah, there are certain. I think there's our business is very split in the mindset of working from home.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
my team is predominantly a sales team, and there are 17 of us, including myself, and all of us are very much. We want that balance of being together,
Yeah.
and then maybe just having that luxury of a couple of days at home
Sure.
to get stuff done, or we got parcels coming or whatever. You can work your life around it a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certain other parts of the company who do slightly different roles that are maybe more operational, more process
Yep.
driven. They're not necessarily, or they don't feel like they rely on that constant communication face to face.
Sure.
They would work from home all day, every day. They would never come back. And I think, but for me, the one thing that I know we miss as a business is that someone's having a cigarette or someone's
Mm,
making a tea, and
mm,
you've just heard that, and that sparks another conversation.
yeah.
That is what businesses are made on. That's what fresh ideas are made on. And
Yeah.
every company at the moment that used to work together that now doesn't is missing that.
Yeah. And there's
Fact, you can't
and there
get
is
around it.
and there's no way to replicate it bar, everyone getting a Zoom account or whatever account and having the thing open all day.
Yeah, which just
Just
isn't going to happen.
I don't really want to be on camera all day. If I'm
Nah,
sat at home, thanks very much. You'll see me in
I'd
my
have to
pants.
put trousers on.
So that's exactly
Yeah. We
that.
think too alike.
It's because it's Christmas is just over. It's the
Yeah,
weirdest time ever. We just got
yeah.
out of Christmas when everyone's like, cool, I got that pair of jogging bottoms and that pair of jogging. And that's probably too many. That'll do me for the time off. And now all of a sudden we're back to work. And I'm like,
Yeah,
same t-shirt. No, 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 no. I'm a real boy again. Okay.
yeah.
So, what about for the rest of this year? I know we're 4 or 5 days in. What do you kind of see happening? I think we can all. Well, I'm of the mind that the UK is going to be in the situation it's in for many, many months to come.
Yeah,
Doesn't just look like there is a light at the end of the tunnel with a vaccine, which is phenomenal, but it's a light at the end of a tunnel. Um,
yeah.
so, what do you see happening this year?
Um, it is quite early to tell. I think going back to what we were saying before about making sure that you're looking at your people and reskilling. I think possibly at the start of the year, or sorry, in middle of last year, people were thinking, "Oh, by Christmas this will all be done and dusted,"
Yeah.
um, and they perhaps weren't planning for another 6 months at least of 2021 to be the same. So I think lots of people are going into frantic. What are we going to do this year? And like I say, it's coming back to what I was saying before about making sure that you're looking at the opportunities within your business and
Mm,
exploring every single one of them, and the services that you could possibly provide that perhaps you haven't focused on in the past because you've not needed to. That then comes back to your people and your individuals. But let's not beat around the bush. It's going to be a tough 6 months.
yeah.
It's going to be a really tough 6 months for a lot of businesses. And it's kind of, as I keep saying to my guys, it's okay to just get through it and do the best you can, and make sure you are doing those little things with your personnel so that you come out relatively strong at the end of it.
Sure.
It's okay to not become the next Amazon in the next 6 months. You don't have to. You don't have to do that. You just need to get through it.
I know that that was our plan at the beginning of 2020,
Yeah,
but and that's so true. And I think, I always harp towards sales, but in every single department, like people are so maxed if you've
mm,
managed to keep your job. And then there's, you know, so many people who are sat furloughed in a horrendous state of limbo, and then a ton of people who are in a massive redundancy pool of people in fighting for work. So, but those of us who have kept jobs, it's everybody's so maxed, like all the time.
yeah.
It's okay for that not to be okay.
Yeah, and I think where the maxed part comes in is because you are trying to juggle everything within under the same roof. Inevitably, I think when you work from home and things are tough, you do end up working longer hours.
Yeah.
Like I say, when I log on at night, you end up, and it means you never really switch off,
Mm.
which is why the 10 days over Christmas was nice, because I wasn't really thinking about it. I deliberately switched off, but
Yeah.
I don't. People aren't really doing that now because your work and life is all in the same space. You
100%.
are then working in the evenings or getting online earlier, and so you don't really have that switch off, which takes its toll over time. So I think, those people that are, like you say, lucky enough to still be working, lucky enough to still be in jobs. It is so important to still try and create that discipline within your day where you do go for walks,
Yes.
do shut down at 4:35, whatever the time is.
Whatever your time is, but turn it off.
Yeah,
Turn
turn
it
it
off.
off, shut it down. Some days you might not be able to, but do it as often as you can. Um, and actually, one thing that working from home has done for me, it has made me more structured. It's made me a lot more organised with my
Mm,
team.
okay. I
That's a,
mean, yeah,
that's
actually,
that's a plus.
that is very, very true. There was so many places that I realized that we were pretty sloppy
Yeah,
because we were all there and we get it done, and we're a bunch of like people who can fix things.
yeah,
But like when everyone's suddenly not there, and you don't have that moment where you lean over and go, Andy, did you send that email to Johnny? He's like, oh, thanks,
yeah,
bud. Right? And we don't have those bits and pieces. All of a sudden,
yeah,
like the processes were beyond useful.
yeah, yeah. Well,
But
and that's been a big thing.
yeah, and something we'll keep in the future.
Yes. Yeah, even when we are back,
Mm.
I can't imagine anyone ever going back full time after, probably the best part of 2 years doing this by the time we actually get to that point where you can go back full time.
Very, very true.
I don't think anyone will, because the demands of the people will be like, I ain't coming back 5 days a week. I've just spent the last 2 years working from home.
Yeah,
That's,
you'll have to pay my commuting money. I'm not doing
yeah,
that.
it's not going to happen. I've spent that money on a dog. So a lot of people buying dogs.
Loads of dogs, man.
Um,
Admittedly, I have had 2 cats this year, but
right.
one poor little soul ran away, and then we waited for as long as we could to be like, "He's not coming back. He's not coming, son of a." All right, fine, we get another one. But yeah, there has been a lot of dogs. Like a lot of
Mm,
people who I wouldn't think would have a dog as well now have like dogs.
yeah. Plus, people have moved further away as well.
Mm,
Like, I've got a couple of guys that have been really wanting to live in a certain part of the country for a
right.
while. Couldn't do it because as a business, we just weren't embracing the whole working from home thing.
Who was?
And
Yeah.
yeah, like most businesses. And now we have, and it's given them that opportunity to really go and live where they want to live. And
Mm,
yeah, they can still commute for a couple of days a week, but they probably wouldn't
exactly.
fancy doing it for 5 days a week.
No, exactly not, and that's the dream, and I remember being in work and seeing that become a possibility, that it was like, he can work from home, she can work from her home, and it's the
Yeah,
same, like,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
how? Do they take their big computer and their big old screen and stuff with them?
yeah,
Um, but it's also a case of, like, I feel quite lucky the fact that we started a business when we did, and I've spent 5 odd years before 2020 happened of, life and work kind of molding into each other. I think it just must have been such a struggle for people who haven't been that experienced, and not punching the clock in a bad way, but going in, doing a kick-ass job, getting the hell out
Yeah,
of Dodge. End of day, don't think about it till tomorrow. I used to live like that. It was wonderful,
yeah,
glorious. And now all of a sudden, not really getting that. So I think I think you're right. I think it's so important that that comes from a top down,
mm,
because it's just no other way that your staff are going to be able to let it known that they're having a hard time with it. It's a massive change. No one likes change, and this is a sucky one.
yeah.
Um, so but starting that from the top down and kind of getting that open door policy at least is one way to get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've always embraced it. I think I've got, and also it's accepting as well that maybe you're not always the best person to be that point of contact.
Right.
For instance, I've said this before on other lives. I've got 5 or 6 ladies within my team who 99% of the time we have good banter.
Sure.
I kind of get where they're coming from. There'll be an occasion where I'll run something past the wife, and I'll think, because I don't want to answer that and look like a chump.
Yeah.
So I'll get a woman's perspective on something because I haven't thought about it in that way.
Yeah.
Or if I haven't got time to speak to the wife, I've got other women within the business that are experienced like myself, and we'll discuss a possible
Mm.
resolution. So it doesn't matter what your badge says or how high you are up in a business. You're still not always the best person to solve someone's problem
No.
or even be the listener.
No.
Sometimes you're not the best, and it's
And
understanding that.
you might not, and it's not necessarily a failure if you're not that right person, providing you go and find, it's the old adage, isn't it? I may not be able to answer your question, but I can find out the answer.
Yeah,
Right.
that you're a failure if you don't go and find the right solution for the person because you're just too big-headed to and think that you can do
Yeah.
it all yourself.
Well, I tried everything, and she
Yeah,
didn't seem to help her at all. So
yeah,
must be her, must be
yeah,
him, because I tried
yeah,
everything with them.
yeah. Your job isn't to know it all. It's to provide the best solution or option to be able to deliver a result. And
Mm.
if that means that you're not included and you're not part of the solution, who cares? You're there to facilitate what is the best solution.
So, well, Andy, it's such a pleasure to talk to you, man. Like, I'm just thinking that we're getting to the end of the day, and there's probably a wife who's currently outnumbered downstairs, hoping that her wonderful husband would get off of a silly live show and go and give her a hand with at least a little one. So
She
look,
probably is thinking that, yeah.
it may be. Well, she's probably watching this show, being like, "All right, wrap it up, Sonny. I hear you. I've heard all this before." So look, for those people who aren't really following you, I can constantly say, like, I got in touch with Andy because I just loved his content. It's really, really good. It's incredibly honest, which is what's attractive for me. And also means that you've got someone else out there going through the same things that you are, but is dead eloquent at putting stuff out. So for those people who want to go and find you, where do they find you, Andy? Where's the best place to follow you?
Just follow me. LinkedIn is the best place. Also, I've got a YouTube channel which is going to go through a bit of a revamp
Ooh,
starting tomorrow. The first big video, 10-minute plus video, is going to be being recorded tomorrow on this bad boy behind me,
boosh.
especially for YouTube. I want to make YouTube massive this year and build it out over the next 3 to 5 years. Got a big plan around that.
So what's your YouTube handle?
The Unconventional Boss.
Hoorah. Wonderful.
Everything is the Unconventional Boss. I am on Instagram, but I don't really do too much with that. It's just trying to fit it in. So really, LinkedIn is the place, and YouTube if that's your thing.
Right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. LinkedIn is the place, and YouTube was maybe soon to be kind of the place also, but not quite as
Soon
much
to
of the
be
place
massive.
as the other place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Andy, thanks very much for joining us. And guys,
Pleasure.
see you on
Loved
the
it.
next episode of The Daily Show.